Good afternoon. We'll call the Veterans Meeting to order. And first thing, welcome everybody. And Bridget, you have attendance taken?
Yes, attendance has been taken.
Okay, thank you. So we need approval of the minutes of the November 1st meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ed. We have a second? Benny, thank you for second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. We're going to move on. Frank with the Veterans Office report.
Thank you, Supervisor. Just wanted to highlight to the supervisors our Veterans Trust Office report. I'm not going to go through the details this meeting for brevity's sake. We've got a number of things on the agenda. We are staying busy, taking advantage of any training opportunities that we can and outreach opportunities that we can, though some of those are limited. Continuing to move forward with our transportation service. Conducting our coffee nights and staying busy with the peer program. Our new peer program coordinator is working out very well. Christina Holst, who's been involved in the program for many years. So we're really pleased with the way things are going there. And if any of the supervisors have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. We did start adding a third day to our van schedule this month. So in December, we will be adding Wednesdays. We'll be running since COVID, and since we started back up with COVID, we've only been going 2 days a week because of demand. And a lot of the clinics and activities at the VA hospital weren't happening. Slowly but surely, we're seeing a little bit of demand increase, and we're trying to provide some flexibility to the veterans. So in December, we're offering 3 days a week. And if we have a need to add that fourth day and get back to normal, then we'll do that. And I'll keep the committee and the board abreast of any changes, but right now we're going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with our transportation to the VA hospital. And I think that's all for today.
Anybody have any questions for Frank? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Looking at the trust fund report. Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, I'm so, do you have a copy of that? Sorry, I can't find mine. So just an update on our trust fund. We have a balance on hand of $117,604.41. Most recent activity, we had a couple of grant disbursements in assisting a couple local veterans. And we had a donation from the town of Greenfield. We want to thank the town of Greenfield. For the last couple of years, they've held a veterans support golf event at Brookhaven Golf Course and have given us a significant donation the last couple of years. And they gave us a donation of $3,000, which I accepted at their Veterans Day luncheon. So I want to thank Supervisor Pemrick and the town of Greenfield and everybody involved at Brookhaven in that tournament. They usually split the proceeds between us and volunteer services at the VA hospital, a very worthwhile charity as well. So we're really grateful for their support.
You're welcome, Frank. Thank you. We're happy to do it.
Dan, this is Tom. We all want to thank you, not just Frank, but that's just a tremendous job on your part. So thanks so much. While we're talking about the trust fund, I'd like to bring up a discussion in regards to changing the amount of money that we're able to distribute to a veteran in need. Currently, I'll pass it to Frank. He's got all the numbers. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is something that we'd be offering under other business. As you are aware, our trust fund, as I just discussed, is solely funded by donations and some of our fundraising efforts like our 5K run. And we use that fund to do a couple of things. Primarily, we provide grants to individual veterans who come to us with a particular emergency or crisis. And there's not another benefit or program out there that we can connect them to. So it's kind of a last ditch effort, but if there's something that we need to do quickly, like a vehicle repair or home repair or other type of activity, we'll leverage our trust fund and provide a grant to deserving veterans. We do have an application process. And historically, what we've done over the last few years is, at my recommendation to the Veterans Committee Chair, the Veterans Committee Chair approves the expenditure, and then we go ahead and take care of the grant. We typically don't reimburse. What we do is pay directly to the source. So if there's a car repair that's made, we require a written quotation from the mechanic, and then we work with the mechanic to go ahead and get that repair done. You know, we call them, or we'll let them know, hey, look, we're going to cover this expense. We're going to cut you a check from Saratoga County, and then they go ahead and make the repair for the veteran. So that's typically how it works. What we found is with everything else, everything is more expensive. And $750 was our limitation. And as you just heard, we feel that we've got a fairly robust trust fund right now, over $100,000. And it doesn't get a whole lot done. We had an emergency situation recently that we had to work with Adult and Family Services where veteran had significant disabilities and health issues and just had, I don't want to call it a hoarding situation, but just became overwhelmed on his property and in his home. And working with Adult and Family Services, if we could get the property to a safe and baseline clean level, which would require a clean out from a company to come in and do that, then they could set up home housekeeping services through the county and to take care of that veteran and help him take care of his household. And, you know, $750 wasn't going to get the job done. It was a little bit more money. So I passed out some proposed changes. The last time we did this was 2017. When we did that in that resolution, 237-2017, if you turn to the back page, the last paragraph reads, resolved that the Veterans Committee of this board is hereby authorized to approve and adopt future amendments to the attached rules and regulation by committee vote only without further action by this board. So that's why we're offering it up here to the committee. And what we'd like to do is increase our individual grant amounts. If you go to page 3 of the packet, we just discussed this. I had put $1,250. The chairman is asking to amend that to $1,500 per veteran. And then I've also asked to increase support to individual organizations. Previously, it was $2,000. If somebody makes an application, I'd like to increase that to $2,500. And that's under item E. If you read the next sentence, the Veterans Committee shall have the discretion to exceed said limits for applications the committee deems to be particularly meritorious and deserving. So what this does is this allows us to act quickly, but if there's something that comes up, the Veterans Committee does have the authority to alter this a little bit with a committee vote. The second change would be under item F. And we had voted on this in committee a couple of years ago, but when I was looking at these regulations, it wasn't codified in the regulation where in cases of emergency request by individual, the chairman of the Veterans Committee shall have the authority to approve disbursements. So historically, waiting a month to replace a hot water tank isn't going to work for the next Veterans Committee meeting. So I like being able to make a recommendation and then have the chairman make the final approval. That process seems to work well. The board is stewards of this money just as much, if not more, than I am. And so I think it's appropriate to get the approval from the chairman of the committee and also to keep the chairman abreast of what we're doing. So the process seems to work well and allows us to react quickly. So that's just making sure that that's in the regulation there. Historically, any requests by groups for the disbursements, the $2,500, those things typically aren't emergencies and they'll come before the Veterans Committee for a vote. So that usually works well as well.
Just one quick question, Frank. How many veterans had emergencies this year or problems that we had to help with?
I would have to go back.
About, I don't need an
We
exact.
probably maybe, it depends. Probably only about a half a dozen in the last 6 months that we've worked with. But, you know, again, we look at this as a last ditch effort. We always try to go to a more appropriate funding stream, mostly because usually something like a HEAP grant or temporary assistance or a VA program, supportive services for veterans and families grant program, there's more money available. Those are, you know, federal and state programs. So, you know, we try to go to those first. And then this is more of a last ditch effort where something doesn't work. And, you know,
That was the point that I wanted to make, that this only happens maybe 10 times a year,
Right.
approximately, give or take one or two individuals. But this isn't something that we have many instances where we have to do this. So it's more of less than a dozen times a year that this takes place. And so it's not like we're looking to drain this trust fund that that's been doing so well. We're just looking to help these veterans who are in great need. So I wanted to make the point that it's only a few times a year that we have to do this. So thank you. So
Mr. Chairman? Oh,
I just in that section F, I'd kind of like to see something to the effect that up to that $1,500. I think if you're going to exceed that $1,500 for the emergency disbursement, it should come back to the committee. And F really doesn't spell that out that great. Just says the chairman can, approve this disbursement. I think it should say disbursement up to the $1,500.
up to the 50.
Just, I mean, who knows? I'm not that we don't trust the time, but I think it makes it a little more cleaner. And, we give you the authority to get up to $1,500. If there's an emergency more than that, it should come to the committee. That's just my opinion.
And that makes good sense. Anybody else have, Ed, did you have something you want to say?
yeah, because sometimes it has to be expedited. Does anybody have an issue if that approval through the committee is done by email?
Okay, right, as long as everybody's informed, if we go over to 1,500, which
Exactly.
makes sense.
That wouldn't be coming from you in an email then, right?
That'd be coming from Frank. Very funny, Ben.
One other item, if I would,
Yes,
just one
please.
word in G, second line between must and prove, eliminate B, BE, the word B. Thanks.
Okay. So can we have a motion on the floor?
I'll make that motion
Okay.
and for the 1,500 change.
Thanks, Ed. Second? Benny? Everybody in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any opposed? If not, we'll go on to the next item. Thank you. Appreciate that, as will our veterans. Honoring the Veterans Program. Application, we've got the town of Stillwater. Go ahead.
Yes, we have the town of Stillwater submitted an application. That was distributed with the minutes. And then since we have had three other applications come in, I noted those to the chairman to enter in through other business. If you think it's appropriate, can we talk about all of them at once? So we've got
Yeah,
the town of
that's right.
Stillwater. Supervisor Kanowski, would you like to speak to the program?
We took our monies and we divided them between the two veterans posts, the 1644 post and 490 post, and gave them $12.50 each to say, go and run a program in accordance with the letter and requirements from the county. And they both did, but they wanted to do it more towards Veterans Day and later on in the year. And but during that period, they would also seek ways to spend their money the best way they could and seek best pricing. And so they would have purchased it throughout the year, and they did that. So I've submitted their role of how they spent it, how much they spent, and then the programs they ran. And then we paid them, and then I've submitted the request up. So they did good programs, both of them.
Thanks, Ed. And we have a couple of other ones. So Frank, you want to?
Yeah, so just to be clear, town of Stillwater requesting reimbursement of the full $2,500. Since we've gotten an application from the town of Half Moon, the town of Half Moon granted a $1,000 stipend to assist VFW Post 1498, similar to Supervisor Kanowski's initiative with his local veterans groups. And then also a $1,500 stipend allocated towards the moving of a soldier's plot for the village cemetery in Half Moon. So they're working on a project in the cemetery. So two separate projects, but for a request for a reimbursement of $2,500. I do have copies of all of this for each of the supervisors. If anybody chooses to review the documentation, we do have that here for Half Moon. The third application would be from the town of Greenfield. And the town of Greenfield is submitting for reimbursement for their Veterans Luncheon, which I was able to attend with Supervisor Pemrick, and very well attended luncheon at Brookhaven Golf Course. Nice turkey dinner. And they are requesting a reimbursement of $1,650 for that expenditure. And I also have copies of the supporting documentation if any of the members of the committee would like to review that as well. And then finally, we do have one other application pending the supporting docs. They seem to be hung up in interoffice mail from the town of Day. Supervisor Allen is here. I'll let Supervisor Allen speak to his program.
Yeah, what we did on Veterans Day, well, actually, we sent out a form we did living veterans to honor them. And we bought flags that we had hanging outside the town hall for about a month and a half. And on Veterans Day, we did a ceremony where we gave the flags. We also purchased plaques, gave them all plaques. And the Northeastern Quilt Club, I think it was, made each one of them a hand quilt. It was a very nice ceremony, very good attendance. I mean, and we did it on Veterans Day.
Thanks, Preston. So we need a resolution to pass the spending of the money and reimbursement.
I'll move all four of those.
Mo's going to do all four.
I agree, and you don't have to wait for theirs. Upon receipt of Day's package, you can apply that expenditure, correct? Okay.
Very good. Thanks, Ed. Your
I'll
second.
second.
Benny, you have okay. All in favor, aye? Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay, that passes. We'll continue to move on. So thank you. Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
just so you're aware, I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was $2,030, if I remember what the total was.
Okay. Wish you'd told me that sooner. I could have spent some more money in Mechanicville. And the Christmas support. Go ahead. Item number 6. Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in the past, seems to be Trust Fund Day. In the past, we've leveraged our fund to assist veteran families for the Christmas season. And as you know, many families have a hard time with finances, and kids are kids, and every family wants to be able to give their children a nice Christmas. So in the past, what we've done is allocated a certain amount of monies for Christmas assistance for families, and we purchased gift cards and had them on hand in the office. And as we identified families, we were able to allocate a certain amount of gift cards depending upon what we had available to that family to help offset the cost of having a nice Christmas. Examples of what we did were gift cards for toys and clothes and groceries. And so what I'd like to ask, and I open for discussion or ideas from the committee, we didn't do an allocation last year. Last year, we supported other organizations with different initiatives, and we allocated $8,000. I believe the year prior, we allocated $3,000. What I'd like to ask is for up to $5,000 to allocate towards the purchase of gift cards to support veterans families. I have a couple other ideas of some things that we might be able to do, and we may not spend the $5,000, but if we decide that we're going to move forward with an initiative, I'd like that latitude to be able to use up to $5,000 towards this holiday effort to support veterans and their families this year.
Anybody have any comments or any thoughts?
I just have one quick question. I guess it would probably be for Steve.
You got to change
I know-
your flights and
I know, obviously, Preston's only used $2,000 of his grant money, and some other people have not gone to the full 25. Is there any way we could leverage any of that money left out of the grant program towards this Christmas program also? Or is that, I mean, I don't know how our budget was up. I mean, there's obviously going to be some reserve funds out of that grant program. Maybe we don't need to take as much money out of the trust fund. We can use, I don't know. It's just a question whether we can do that instead of using trust fund money for this Christmas program. That's my only question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the money, so I think it was 50,000 was allocated. As long as this committee approves that spending before the end of the year, right? Because it was appropriated for this year. So you may want to take action at this meeting and always defer to the county attorney if there's any thoughts, but I don't think there was any restrictions. Now, it has to be a reimbursable situation, right? Because that was I believe that was the terms of the grant, is that the municipality would submit and get reimbursed. So there'd have to be, to comply with that, I'm thinking, but I don't see where you couldn't repurpose it. We just got to make sure it fits the guidelines, right, of the repurposing.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Ed.
To your point of repurposing. I don't think this committee, as any other committee prior, ever thought of the monies all not being utilized and what contingencies we would apply for remaining funds unused. And so now that we understand that that could occur, so I would think it could be within the parameters of here, if the board approved, to take remaining monies and provide them to the Veterans Organization, Veterans Committee, or Veterans, excuse me. Well, actually, not the committee, but the organization itself, the department. And that could be a repurposing of it, because then he can use that for continuing veterans programs. And that was really the intent of it. It was a one-time, but it's good programs, a thought.
Go ahead, Steve. Yeah, no, so to the trust fund? Right, okay. So thoughts on how we could do that then?
If I could interject, Mr. Chairman, there are two caveats here. The first caveat is we don't know what the towns who have not submitted applications, they have up until December 31st to use the money. So in theory, we could see requests for reimbursement into January, February, as discussed at last month's meeting. I do have a spreadsheet that Megan in my office is maintaining as to who has submitted grant applications and who has not. I think we're close to the halfway point right now. And so unless we had a confirmation from the other towns, now, if there was no objection from anybody who didn't use that, or if anybody didn't submit, it is in my budget line that could be a transfer request, Steve, I'm asking you, to another line item, but I'm not sure, how that would work, but we may see all of that money utilized in January I'm not saying that we are, but I don't know that we can count that the towns aren't going to submit for it.
So that was just a question. That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, but I would hate to see if we have money left over out of this program. I would like to at least see it earmarked for next year or something. And I mean, we've got $50,000 to spend on veterans. I would rather see that $50,000 be spent on veterans than spend, say, $38,000, take the other $12,000, put it in general fund. So if we don't want to do it for this year, that's fine. I would rather see that reserve used towards veterans than keep taking money out of the trust fund. I mean, and if we could use that money for something else instead of the trust fund, that's all I was asking.
Right.
No,
And it's a good point, Mo. So let me ask this question. Maybe Steve or Mike can help us here. So I guess what I want to say is taking Frank's recommendation for this year, the, 10,000? Or $5,000 for this year. But on the other hand, maybe these gentlemen to my right can find out if the money isn't used by some of the current communities that it's still outstanding, if that money could be transferred into the trust fund. Right, exactly. So, well, I don't know either. So, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that it could be, but it would require a board resolution allocating that, similar to the way a public benefit agreement would work, resolving that any remaining funds or unused funds from the grant program be provided for a specific public purpose through the Veterans Services Agency Trust Fund. That can be done by resolution, in my opinion.
Okay. Yes.
That may, I would echo Director McClement's point on unused funds and outstanding applications. It could certainly be something into next year to look at in the grant fund parameters in that resolution and what it looks like, that it becomes an automatic or built into that process.
Go ahead, Steve.
So here's what I'm thinking. It might be worthwhile for this committee to pass a resolution recommending that to the board for the December meeting, because we have until several months after the end of the year to reconcile, right, through the end of this year. So, but there is a timeline. And I believe it is December 31st is the deadline that that any municipality has to submit the information to be reimbursed. And so if, say, come February, the end of February, no other towns have submitted anything. We have $15,000 left over, let's say. If this board has recommended that to the full board approves that this year, because it is this year's appropriation, right? In this month, then we could just do that transfer at an appropriate time in the first quarter next year, if that sounds reasonable.
Okay, so we need a resolution on the floor, if I'm correct, saying that we'd like to have the
reserve funds would be automatically put in the trust fund
Unallocated
after,
money.
whenever Steve reconciles the books for 2021. Right? There's a certain date when you have to do that. It's all housekeeping stuff. So whatever that date is the resolution can just say any reserve funds left over in the veterans grant will be transferred into the veterans trust fund. Correct?
That's it.
But we also need to allow Frank to move forward with.
With that 5,000, I think, yeah, but I think it's going to be a separate resolution.
Okay,
for
so
that $5,000.
let's do two resolutions here.
Yeah.
First, you just made, I'm going to say, the first resolution saying that we're going to transfer the money, the unused funds and the
Into the
grant
trust fund.
into the trust fund. So that's.
I'll make that motion.
You're making that motion. We need a second. Ed is seconding it. Anybody have any questions? If not,
Just for some clarification, Tom,
go ahead.
I thought the money had to be spent by the end of the year.
Yes,
The submission could come in January or February.
that's correct.
The money from the village or town had to be spent by December, just so we're clear.
That's
If
correct.
someone turns paperwork in January, we're not going to say, no, you missed the deadline.
Right. Just as long as the money was spent.
Expenditures were spent in 21.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Well, I
All
think that's why we put in the resolution, whatever the date is for Steve to reconcile the 2021 books, that's the date we do the transfer. Correct.
Okay.
And
Frank?
if I could just interject, Steve and I have already discussed, this is where the spreadsheet came to, we're keeping track of who submitted, and then at a time that the administrator's office feels appropriate, we can send out a reminder to the board saying, by such and such a date, please submit any outstanding applications for grant reimbursement so that we can rectify the books. And I'll work closely with the administrator's office on when that date is appropriate. And then once we have that drop dead date, we know then sort of the last call has taken place. Is that appropriate, Steve? And then the last call will have taken place, and then the board would know, okay, this is the remaining funds that we'll in turn allocate to the trust fund.
So I think this probably should be mentioned at the full board meeting next week, right? And so we have a resolution on the floor. We have a second. All in favor, aye? Anybody have any other thoughts before we move on? Okay, so now we need a second resolution, which is for Frank to spend up to $5,000 out of the trust fund for this Christmas for veterans. Benny's floor, yes. Preston, second. Any questions in regards to this? If not, all in favor, aye? Anyone opposed? Okay, both resolutions passed. We're good to go. The next item is number 7, deceased veteran ceremonies.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, our upcoming deceased veteran ceremonies. We are not having a ceremony here this month in December, as you all are aware. And then our upcoming ceremonies will begin again in January, and that was also distributed. And we would just ask that the chairman read that under committee reports at the full board meeting. And I am scrolling to the list, but our upcoming ceremonies in January will be the town of Malta. We have a veteran and husband and wife, both veterans, served during the Korean War. In February, we have the town of Stillwater. We already have a name, a veteran by the name of Carney, World War II veteran. And then, of course, March, city of Mechanicville. And we all know Chris Scambati has already been nominated for the city of Mechanicville. So these were names that were brought forth pre-pandemic. We're going to continue on with that. The towns are all in agreement to maintain those nominations. So we'll move forward with executing those ceremonies in the beginning of the year.
Thanks, Frank. Anybody have any questions in regards to those? If not, we're looking for any other items that anybody might want to discuss. Sure,
It's
go
not a necessarily committee thing. For members who call in and they want to hear the vote, do the people present here have to press their button in order for them to hear? Because I never hear the committee votes or board votes when I'm calling in.
For the public line, they can hear what's in the room. For the supervisors and department heads, you have to speak into your microphone for people to hear
The
you.
people here in order for us to hear. All right,
Correct.
very good, thank you.
Okay, so do we have any other items that come before us today? If not, we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Thanks, Ed. We need a second. Thanks, Benny. All in favor, aye. If I don't see us, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you all for, thank you all for this year's activity, and I think we did some great things this year, so I appreciate it. Thanks so much.